So today we have with us, this is Bill McClure, and he's from Gospel Broadcasting Mission, and I won't say too much more about that because he knows a lot more about it than I. And they came down from Wisconsin, correct?
That's correct.
Up in Wisconsin. And so I guess, Bill, let's just start with that. I mean, I told him your name, but tell us a little bit about who you are and what Gospel Broadcasting Mission is.
Well, I are Bill McClure, and I are a radio guy, but I don't speak that way. Yes, it's a privilege to be here. First of all, I want to thank the church for your history of support for Gospel Broadcasting Mission. You have really helped us through the years and are still a part of the ministry, and we appreciate that greatly. And I want to say thank you right at the outset. Gospel Broadcasting Mission started in 1952 in Garrett, Indiana. Does anybody know where Garrett, Indiana is? Does anybody care? It's not a very big place. It's just right up next to Fort Wayne. And it was started, and it's appropriate, I think, this Memorial Day weekend to think of Gospel Broadcasting Mission because it was started in memory of a veteran. It was started in memory of Merwin Green, who was the foster son of Walter and Mamie Coble. And the Cobles wanted to do something because Merwin wanted to go back after the war and become a missionary. But because of his death on a battlefield in France in 1944, he could not, of course. So in his memory, they started Gospel Broadcasting Ministry. And the goal was to preach the gospel to the warring nations by radio. And we started with one radio program to Radio Luxembourg, over Radio Luxembourg. And now we have programs in 16 different languages that we sponsor and help produce. We have a studio in Thailand and other studios in India and other parts of the world that we help support where our programs are produced. Now, we believe in radio, and this thing that I'm wearing around my neck is a radio. You might think I'm so old I need oxygen, but I am old, but this is not an oxygen thing. And this is a shortwave radio, battery operated, but also solar powered. So you can turn the natives or the people that listen can turn the solar panel up and it'll recharge itself. And we're distributing these things in rural villages in Asia, Southeast Asia, and in other parts of the world. Primarily, we are broadcasting in areas of the world that are remote, where we have no missionaries. And we work with missionaries and nationals and help them expand their ministry to their people in their language by radio. And radio is a great tool to use. If you don't know what a radio is, it's TV without the viewer, without the picture, without the screen.
Well, that's a question that I have, actually, this generation probably gets radios more so, but it seems like, with so much of the modern technology of internet and things like that, why have you stuck with radio? I mean, obviously, there's a good reason that you continue to use radio each and every day. Why is that such a valuable tool?
Well, 75% of the world has radio. The developing world listens to shortwave radio, and it is the single widest, most widely used medium or media, and people can listen to it worldwide. And the other thing is most of our communications today are operated under control of the United Nations charters and agreements. For instance, you cannot send a TV signal into a country that has not previously approved it. But shortwave radio is grandfathered in. You can broadcast shortwave radio anywhere because it's an older technology than television and some of the newer internet technologies. And so we can broadcast worldwide into Laos, China, India, and other parts of the world that are off limits to the Christian message. And they can't really block it or stop it. And so they allow it. And shortwave radio is a powerful tool to use. Most of our programs are through Far East Broadcasting Company, which is the world's largest overseas shortwave broadcaster. And then we put our programs on in various languages. For instance, this radio that I have it has a Bible in the Lisu language, and it also has Bible lessons and music in Lisu. And so our representatives in various parts of the world can take this to people who speak Lisu in Thailand or in Laos or China or wherever and leave it in the village, and they can listen every evening to our radio broadcasts. Most of our programs are daily, but not all. The other part that we do, Brian, is the Christians Hour. The Christians Hour started in 1943 in Cincinnati. Ard Hoven was the speaker for years. Ard died in the 1980s, and I became director of the Christians Hour, and Leroy Lawson was our speaker. Currently, we have 5 speakers: Bob Russell, Rick Atchley, Tim Harlow, Aaron Brockett, and Ben Kachiris. All of these men, you'll hear them at the North American, and many of them are leaders and writers, much more educated than I am, and so we take their sermons and put them on the Christians Hour, and we're heard around the United States and on the internet and over oneplace.com, which is a streamer. So you can sponsor the program. We're on in Burlington, but it's not Burlington, Illinois. It's Burlington, Indiana, which is too far for you to hear, but you can listen anytime on the internet. And the Christians Hour is, the purpose of the Christians Hour was to preach the gospel and share the message of Jesus Christ, and that's what we do.
Very good. Do you have, and maybe with radio, it's hard to tell an idea of how many listeners? Is there any way to gauge that you might have?
Not really.
No?
Not really. Not honestly. I mean, okay. I could tell you we reach 1/3 of the people in the world, and that wouldn't be honest. I don't know. We don't know how many people are listening. Most of our programs are on in rural areas. The farmers come in, and they will gather in the village, and they'll have even a worship service in the evening, and they'll listen around the fire or whatever. But also we're on in major areas and heard everywhere through the internet. Yeah. Most of our programs are on internet. For instance, Lisu, you can turn on the internet today and hear our Lisu programs if you knew Lisu. Otherwise, you wouldn't understand it. But it's a real great way to broadcast and reach people with the gospel. Television's great, it works fine, but in the rural areas where most of the people we reach live, or behind locked doors, or behind prison walls, or wherever, why radio is a great tool to use. Yeah.
How about as far as your spread? I know you said you have stations, or not station, what would you call it? A studio.
Production studio.
So like in Thailand, and so how far would your broadcast range be? I mean, whether they listen to it or not, you can go out to how many countries or what type of area of the world is covered?
Okay, well, these are, most of our programs are heard in the 1040 window, which I have a map back there on the table in literature if you're interested, and you can see the diagram of the 1040 window where most of the unreached people in the world live, and most of our broadcasts are in that area. Let's take one example. We're on in Pao, which is heard in Burma, but it also spills over by shortwave into surrounding countries. Pao is one of the major languages of Burma, or Myanmar as it's now called, and we work with the broadcaster. We help them produce the programs. Most of our broadcasts are produced in Chiang Mai, Thailand, where we have a studio, but also we help support small studios in Burma and in some areas where where they're in homes instead of in studios because of opposition, because of non-believers, because of false believers in various religions, Buddhists or whatever. Okay. I'd like to read this, if I might. This tells you a lot about radio. This was written, I like to use this, and there's a copy back there, I think. I am a missionary. I'm being used of God to go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. I have a tremendous task. I'm a missionary, yet the weakness of the body does not slow me down. I never get a headache. I never have a cold. I never get tired. I'm a missionary that knows no barriers. I can reach into the homes of the rich and the poor, into respectable homes and into the places of ill repute. The race or creed of a man does not restrain me. Bars are not a barrier to me, nor are curtains of iron or bamboo. I am a welcomed missionary. Homes are open to me that would never open to a preacher. Ears will hear my message eagerly, though they would never go to a Christian church. I am an educated missionary. I speak the language perfectly, and I speak to the professional so he can understand, and as well as to the uneducated. I am an effective missionary. I can reach more people at one time than Paul reached in a lifetime. I can cover more territory with the gospel in 15 minutes than the average missionary could cover in many months. I am man-made, but God sent. I am radio. And that was written by a woman who worked with Transworld Radio, and we've worked with them as well in sponsoring programs. That's what radio does, and you're a part of that because you're supporting Gospel Broadcasting Mission and the Christians Hour. And we appreciate that, and with your continued support, we'll continue, and we'll be around for a while, and can answer some questions, and would be glad to visit with you.
Okay. Yeah, they'll be back here at the table and to visit. Bill and your wife is right over here, and I've asked her twice. Lorene.
Yeah, Lorene.
Will be here with us the rest of this morning, worshiping with us. And please ask questions. This is one of the greatest things about this is we get to actually see these guys in the flesh. It's one thing to read a newsletter or to hear me talk about it from the stage, but when you get to see Bill and hear him talk about it, and you can hear that passion in his voice as he talks about this idea of radio and how it reaches literally potentially millions, maybe billions of people. I mean, that's an incredible opportunity there. So we are privileged to be a part of that. So anything else? Last chance to tell us that's real important going on, or anything you want to leave us with?
You mentioned veterans, and I thought I would say I've been married for over 50 years, so I feel like a veteran. And we've had our wars, but without Lorene, I would not be able to do what I do, and she's a great part of the ministry. We actually office in the home currently. The office expense became too big an expense, and since we don't really sell anything or whatever, our boys were gone. We raised 4 sons, and they're out on their own, have their own families and businesses and so forth, and so we converted the basement of our home into offices, and we office there and have a studio there. And so we work together 24/7, and we still talk to each other, and she's still my wife, and it's a privilege to be here this morning. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.